Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Lori, I'm the Frugal Mom. Yes, I'm having a bad hair day. So I am going to be making dinner with you today, utilizing some things from the food pantry. Some things from the food pantry, some things that I have as pantry staples. And I think I'm going to be making a video on that. So without further ado, I will get into one of the recipes. So tonight I'm making pork chops with cornbread stuffing and cinnamon sugar apples in a skillet. And then, I'll open various vegetables with it. So this is what I'm going to be using tonight. I've got about 5 apples from the food pantry. They're just starting to turn wrinkly, so they may not be great for out of hand cooking, but eating rather. Out of hand eating. But they are good to bake with or to cook with, so why not waste them, right? And then this is a pantry staple for me, butter. I don't always have it, fresh butter, but most of the time I do, and I always buy it when it's on sale, and I stock my fridge and my freezer with it. A couple of months ago I got it for $2.99 a pound, and that is an awesome price, especially right now. So I'm going to need 2 tablespoons of this melted in a skillet. And then this is a pantry staple for me. It's cornstarch. I'm not really brand loyal, so whatever cornstarch I get, I usually have it in a canister. However, the last time I used it, I emptied my canister and I forgot to put it back in. Bad frugal mom. And then, of course, we're going to use some cinnamon. You may want to use a pinch of salt just to kind of balance out the sweet and, the savory of it. I'm going to taste it after I'm done, and I'll let you guys know. It just depends on how sweet the apples end up being, and I'll taste one after they're cooked. And then the recipe does call for brown sugar. However, you guys know that I'm diabetic, so I'm going to be using some Splenda, and it's going to come out just as good, I'm sure of it. So let me chop up my apples. Be right back. All right, so I've got 6 sliced apples, and these are mostly gala apples. In my frying pan, I like to use nonstick with 2 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter and a tablespoon of water. So I'm just going to simmer them, excuse me for reaching, until they're soft, which should take about 5 minutes. I'm just going to keep them moving so they don't stick to the bottom. It already smells good in here. Okay, so this is about the spot that you want your apples to be in. They're nice and soft, but not mushy. So I'm just gonna stir them around once again. I turned the heat to low for this part, and I'm just gonna add, this is a 1/3 cup of water with a tablespoon of cornstarch, and that kind of makes a slurry. Now there's a little bit left on there, so I'm gonna make sure I get all of that out. And well, you guys know me. It calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, but are we going to stop there? Of course not. And then I'm going to throw in 2 tablespoons of regular white Splenda after this all combines and starts to get thick. So these have been cooking for about 3-4 minutes. You can already see that it's got a nice, thick, caramelly looking glaze on it. These are going to be delicious. If any of you had a Boston Market around you back in the day, that's what these remind me of. These are very versatile. These can be used over ice cream and oatmeal, on top of pancakes, side dish for pork, lots of different things, or just by themselves over yogurt. So it's never a bad thing to make a batch of these. Now over in this little pot, I have some packaged pork gravy that I had up in my pantry. It's just the store brand. And all that is 2 cups of water in the 2 packets. I boiled them. I'm making sure to whisk it so that everything is incorporated. And yeah, I do like to make my own gravies and sauces. However, on a weeknight, it is nice to have a shortcut. And I didn't happen to have any pork broth or drippings, so this is what we're going to use for tonight, and it'll be plenty good. So now I'm going to take my whisk out, and I'm just going to let it sit for a couple of minutes and it'll thicken. And while that happens, I'm going to get my cornbread stuffing and my pork chops going. Okay, so I've got my largest non-stick skillet here with a little bit of canola oil in the bottom of it because I'm going to sear my pork chops. And then I'm going to add some chicken broth. You can also use vegetable stock if you like, or just water if that's all you have, to give it some flavor so they don't dry out. Now the reason I'm using canola oil is because I have run out of extra virgin olive oil, which is unusual for me, but I'm telling you guys, the prices on the olive oil are insane. So I am waiting until I have enough to go buy a huge jug at Costco because it seems to be most economical that way. It was $28 for, I don't know how big it was exactly, but it was a huge jug, and it was more economical to do it that way than to buy several smaller bottles. You know, I think that's really what I'm going to do, or if it goes on sale at one of the supermarkets. So I'm going to use whatever fat source I've got until then. So these are my pork chops. These came from the food pantry, and they gave me 2 packages because even though it's a pound in each package, and they're made by Swift, as you can see, so that's a good brand, they are pretty thin. And that's okay, because if somebody wants more than one, they can have them. Now, my son really does not like the fat on the corners, so I'm going to leave that fat on while I cook them so they don't dry out, but then I'll cut his off so he doesn't get grossed out by it. You guys know how kids are. So I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to use fine sea salt, some garlic powder, some black pepper. All of this is to taste, of course, and Italian seasoning. And then what would any dish be without some nice minced garlic? So I am going to saute some garlic, probably about 2 tablespoons. I know that seems like a lot, but it really does give it a nice flavor. And then I'm going to rinse off my pork chops and pat them dry with some paper towel, season them, and then I'll get them in the pan. So here's our 8 pork chops, and they're searing in the canola oil with the seasonings on them. So what I do is I keep one hand to touch the meat, whatever meat or poultry I'm using, and then I keep one to sprinkle on the seasonings. I'll demonstrate that when I have someone to do the camera work for me. And I will usually leave the cracked pepper to last because I need both hands and I'll want to wash my hands. To make it easier for myself, I take the caps off of all of my spice jars, you know, or open them if they have shaker lids. That way I can just do it in one fell swoop. So I'm going to just let these saute for another minute, and I'm going to flip them. I think I'm just going to add water because all these seasonings are going to make like a nice pan sauce, and I want to really capitalize on that, you know, the pork fat as well. So it smells really good, guys. Yeah, it does. The other important thing is you want to make sure that your pork chops are dry after you rinse them off. You know, sometimes when they're cryovac like these were, they get like this weird slimy juice on them. So that's why I like to rinse them. That's not really appetizing to me. So that's why I do it. Very important to dry them because you want to make sure that they don't steam. You want to make sure that they saute. I'm going to go and flip them. Alright, flip them, and you can see on them the garlic that I sauteed, all these wonderful spices. And I'm just going to let them saute and brown, basically like a little sear, to that beautiful color for another couple minutes on this side. And then I'm going to lower the heat. Right now I have on high because you want that so you can sear in all the juices. So here are our pan juices, and they are sauteing. Decided to take our pork chops out because I didn't want them to dry out. So they're right over here, and I'm going to cut the fat off the one for my son. And then I was looking in my cupboards, and I found that I had a box of pork stuffing mix. And yeah, of course I can make this from scratch, and oftentimes I do. But I have, you know, a good number of boxes of stuffing, and they are good for quick weeknight meals. And sorry, you hear my sister in the background talking to the cat. That's okay. So I decided to use the pork mixture, and all you do is you take a cup and a half of water, and this is universal across any brand, any flavor pretty much. You boil it, you add butter if you desire, or margarine, and then you just add the stuffing mix and you let it sit for a few minutes, and then you fluff it with a fork. I'm going to cover that. So I've got my pork gravy in the little pan behind the apples, my apples, and I've got, I guess you would call this pan gravy. It's got the drippings from the pork chop. I'm just going to let this reduce and get nice and thick. I'm going to add some of this to that pork stuffing to give it more flavor. So this is what the pan drippings look like after you reduce them. See how they got nice and thick? You can see all the garlic in it. So I took about 3 tablespoons of this and I added it to our stuffing mixture just to add to the flavor. And then we can pour some of this over our pork chops. All right, so here's dinner all plated up. I heated up some canned corn and some green beans. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic salt on the green beans. And there's our pork chop. I trimmed off all the fat for my son. I put a dollop, a good generous dollop of the pork stuffing on top of it, and some pork gravy. And then I'm going to serve our cinnamon apples. There they are, in a separate bowl, because he's not going to like it all together on one plate. You know how teenagers are. And then we're going to enjoy it. Matt.
Hi.
Are you ready to try dinner?
CCC.
Okay.
This first.
Okay. There's your cinnamon apples.
I dropped one.
That's okay.
Good.
Good? Okay.
Sweet, savory.
Savory? I didn't put any salt in it.
Tastes like it. Stuffing's good. Pork chop good.
Yummy.
That's good.
Out of 10?
Solid 9.5.
Okay. Alright, so what do we want people to do?
Like and subscribe.
That's right. Hit
Do
that
it or
thumbs
I
up.
come find you.
Oh, he's not going to come find you. Okay, everybody, we are sending love from New Jersey from our dinner table to yours. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.